Hi everyone, how's it going? So many of you will have seen on the internet the consent is as easy as tea video. I myself got shown it in sixth form, some of you may have seen it in high school or college. And while it's a very good introduction to consent, it doesn't quite cover everything. So welcome to Consent, It's Not As Easy As Tea, where we're going to delve into consent a little bit deeper. First, let's recap what we see in the tea video. If someone says yes, then that is consent. If someone says that they aren't sure, that's not a clear yes, so do not force them and wait for them to decide firmly yes or no. If someone says no, then that means no. Don't get annoyed at them and don't force them. If someone says yes at first, but then changes their mind, then that is not consent. People are allowed to change their minds. If someone is unconscious, then they cannot consent. If they say yes while they were conscious and then they pass out, then consent is no longer valid. If they say yes, then pass out during the act, consent is no longer there, so stop and make sure that they are okay. And just because they said yes one time, that does not mean you have consent for any other time. You must get consent every time. So this is a solid starting point, but it doesn't quite go into the more complex stuff, and it also isn't necessarily right. So let's look a bit deeper into yes being consent, because fun fact, a yes isn't always a yes. If any kind of physical, emotional, or psychological pressure, abuse, or force is used to coerce someone to have sex, then that person being coerced has lost their freedom of choice, and so they cannot truly consent. Often in these situations, an individual will say yes, but that's out of fear for any potential consequences that they could face if they say no, and unfortunately this is seen a lot in abusive relationships. It is actually a myth that you cannot be sexually abused in a relationship, and abusers will often use the excuse, "Oh, but you said yes," to defend their actions. To put it simply, coercion is not consent. As well as freedom to make the choice, we also have the capacity to make the choice. This is partly covered in the tea video because unconscious people do not want tea. But there are a few other situations where this applies as well. If someone is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, then they may not have the sufficient capacity to consent. If the individual is under the age of 16, then by law, they cannot consent. And if the individual may struggle to communicate due to a form of disability, then they may not be in a position to consent. The important things to remember are: you get the final say over what happens to your body. You are entitled to stop or change your mind. It doesn't matter what you are wearing, what you've had to drink, where you are, what your sexuality is, what your gender is. None of these things change the fact that no means no. Nobody is entitled to your body. Nobody has the right to do things to your body without consent. You decide your boundaries, you decide what you are comfortable with, and you choose whether you consent or not, nobody else. To help remember the rules of consent, think about FRIES. Consent should be freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. Freely given, meaning no coercion of any form is used. Reversible, meaning that consent can be taken back at any point. Informed, meaning that you can only consent if you know the full story. For example, if you consent to sex with a condom, but then the other person takes it off, then that's not full consent. Enthusiastic, meaning you only do the things that you actually want to do, not the things you feel you are expected to do. So if you want to have sex, but you don't want to go down on someone, that is perfectly valid. And specific, because a yes to foreplay on a Thursday is not a yes to sex on the following Monday. Saying yes to one thing doesn't mean you've said yes to other things. Remember to set boundaries, remember FRIES, and remember that you are in control of your body. If you are affected by this video, or if you are a survivor of abuse, follow the links below to get support. Thank you for watching.